Just look at how good this car still looks over a decade on. We have got the stunning VVS Gen 1 Lamborghini Aventador, a 2013 car, done approximately 17,000 miles and is up for £175,000. And the reason that I'm down here, you would have seen in one of my recent videos, my Alfa Romeo Stelvio Quadrifoglio was parked up right here, and I've replaced it with a 6.5 litre V12. I can hear a howl. I believe this is the Murciélago we've been waiting for. It is. Now then, this is where the video gets interesting. What are you doing? Do a 3-point turn and come back. That sound, I heard it from so far away. I didn't know whether we were going to get the opportunity to feature that particular car on camera, but it is the only Murciélago that VVS have for sale. And I was going to delve into a little bit about this car, but whilst that car is here, we will try and get it parked up alongside this before jumping into the Aventador to set the bar for me to remind myself on what that car is like to drive, because, well, I've done my fair share of miles in a Murciélago. I know what that's all about. We will drive that at the end because it did sound pretty good. But we'll start with this. Oh, there is nothing quite like walking up to one of the most iconic Lamborghinis in their history and getting in and pulling the door down. It will never get old. The Aventador, just to me, even though it's not my generation, the Murciélago is, still looks incredible. And when the sun is shining and you have this specification, it blows you away every single time. So we will thoroughly enjoy this drive, but we'll want to start with the Aventador for a number of reasons, but I will get out onto the road before any more vans and trucks come past me whilst I've been trying to film, to crack on. I'm going to start in Strada mode, and I'm actually going to start in automatic so that we can get a real feel for how Lamborghini evolved the Murciélago, which is such an analog experience. You still get that same analog experience from the Aventador, just with a little bit more refinement and also a little bit more automaticness. You've got to remember, this car is 10 years old. This is a 2013 car. But actually the Aventador came out in 2011, so it's 12 years old. And so people, when they look at the interior of the Aventador, go, oh, that looks dated. It's because it is. But seeing as now, this car and the LP640, the only LP640 that VVS have for sale at the moment, because they've sold them all, these are up for the same money, £175,000, and they've done pretty much the same miles. There's 5 years between the two, so it's almost a direct comparison. But the interesting thing is, VVS have in stock quite a few Aventadors. They've got an Aventador Ultimate, they've got an SV Roadster, they've got this Gen 1 Coupe, and they've also got a Gen 1 Roadster. With the Murciélagos, at one point, I think they had 7 or 8. Pretty much all gone now. So is that a potential insight into the buying habits of potential Lamborghini collectors? The one thing that is for certain is the automatic gearbox in the Aventador in Strada mode is atrocious. However, having just pulled into a pub to move some GoPros around, the one thing that has pleasantly surprised me is how Lamborghini modernized the V12, that sledgehammer that is iconic. And yes, the Aventador looks such an intimidating car to drive, but the steering is incredibly light. And actually, I know I slagged off the gearbox, and everyone does, but if you learn how to use it properly, it can become quite enjoyable, especially if you just take it into manual mode and actually want to do the gears yourself. It's probably the best way that I would recommend you do it. But the Aventador still commands probably the greatest road presence on any other car in the entire world, and for the price tag of £175,000, you can pull into Beverly Hills or central London, Monaco, and still turn as many heads as if you had a £2.5 million Bugatti Chiron, especially in this spec. All of the exterior carbon, £5,000 carbon wing mirrors. It's almost perfect. Yellow brake calipers with satin black Dione wheels is pretty much there or thereabouts, and especially on a day like today, we put it into sport mode. And you just have to massage it, soothe it, warm it up, make sure everything is running as it should. And then you can really start to unleash the 6.5 litre V12 that is completely different to the 6.5 litre V12 of that in the LP640. When you shift through the gears, you can almost feel everything working underneath you. It's a really impressive car, and I actually think the Gen 1 is getting better with age. There are so many variations. I believe the Ultimate is a little bit too much. The SVJ is probably the most iconic one, but the way the Aventador SV looks, it's so clean and sticks so true to the lines of the Aventador that actually, looking at this car and imagining what other people are seeing when they're driving towards it, one of the coolest cars in automotive history. And at £175,000, personally, driving this one in particular around, it's a really tight example, drives really nice. There's no mechanical noises from the suspension or... We've got a broken down taxi. Even just looking at these two cars, whilst originally I thought the Gen 1 Aventador drove worse than an LP640, I've got a funny feeling that this car now, in this day and age, is just going to feel that bit easier to manoeuvre around at slow speeds and better to just drive on some of the country lanes. Now, getting into this after the Aventador is like getting into a time capsule. Even the sound of the door clunking almost gives you that military G-Wagon feel. You've got this random handbrake down here that, I know, seatbelts around here. I used to laugh at everyone that did that in my car. So, okay, that's the handbrake off, on, that's off. Oh, don't tell me it's got an immobiliser. It does have an immobiliser. It's going to ping off, isn't it? This is a disaster. In true Murciélago fashion, I did nothing different there and it started up. And just like the Aventador, the Murciélago has offset pedals, meaning my lower body is actually twisted in towards the center console, where the majority of my body is facing forward, or at least my arms and shoulders are facing forward. Then my upper body is twisted a little bit because the seats don't actually sit straight to the back of the car. They kind of point inwards as well, but then my feet are twisted even more inwards. So it's quite an unusual driving position, a little bit more strange than the Aventador. The Aventador's got a strange driving position, but this already feels wider, heavier, more like a muscular brute that you really have to wrestle with. And I'm just going to cruise to begin with to get my bearings. I've got my GoPros on. But my God, does it feel different. There's only a 5-year difference between this car and the blue Aventador. But my God, the evolution and adaptations to modern technology that Lamborghini have implemented to the Aventador that make it when you drive this, the Aventador feels effortless to cruise around in the corners, but nothing beats this V12. This one sounds way better than the Aventador, but even still, I am eyes like a hawk on the road ahead. Oh, it's bringing back memories. It isn't as comfy. It definitely isn't as easy to drive. The visibility feels slightly worse, but I think if you're going to compare the two, the Murciélago has got all of the credentials to become a proper modern classic, if it isn't already, whereas the Aventador, because of its modern technology, because of how many were built, as iconic as it is, are you really going to lust after one in 10 years' time? Whereas the Murciélago, I believe, is a true unicorn. And then you have to go all the way around like that. Oh, I'm actually going to pull into this pub and have a break, so I need to get the air conditioning on. I hope it works. Okay, I'm so annoyed that I did not capture that on camera, because right there was the exact reason why I'm actually quite glad that I don't have the Murciélago anymore. I just tried to do a 3-point turn in someone's driveway. I had zero visibility. I almost reversed into two cars that refused to let me out. They assumed that I would have seen them, but I couldn't see anything, even though I've got a... Oh, where's my phone going? Oh, I'm so stressed out driving this car. Honestly, I was just waiting for a car to go into the back of me, reversing back out with massive, massive blind spots. I'm actually sweating now. My heart rate's probably high, and now the fact that my phone's going off and my watch is vibrating on my wrist is enough to park this car up. But the thing with the Murciélago, it was my dream car. I owned it. I can feel that this whole place is heating up in here. And I've got the aircon on. Bloody hell. Give me some air. Because, here we go. Is it coming out? Oh my god, I have no idea. I'm going to pick the vlog up when we get back to BBS. Oh my god. I did and I didn't miss the LP640 because I always had those amazing memories in the back of my head of every single time I hit a tunnel and hearing that V12. But actually, the memories that I'd forgotten, or what my brain had erased from my memory, was all of that slow speed, jittery, which is part of the character of the Murciélago. But I think when you drive the Gen 1 Aventador, which yes, you have the ability of doing that in that car, and you can really burn through the clutch in the Aventador just like you can in the Murciélago, there's something a little bit more easy and a little bit more stress-free in the Aventador, and I was blown away by just how easy it was to maneuver around some of the really tight country lanes, whereas that felt incredibly big. I think it's something to do with how small the steering wheel is and then how much more intimidating that car is to drive. But the Murciélago is iconic. The fact that they're now both that same price point, I might head inside and chat to Dan and the team here about what these look like on finance, the Murciélago versus the Aventador, because you just never know. The Murciélago might be really, really good with a residual because of how old it is and the fact that they are appreciating, whereas the Aventador potentially could still lose money. So it is a massive brain dump of information for me and two absolutely mad experiences. But honestly, driving that and the Aventador, and they're only 5 years apart, both with very similar mileage, both the same price, it is amazing to see just how far Lamborghini have come, and I cannot wait to get behind the wheel of the Rev Welto if that Aventador is anything to go by on what the Murciélago was 5 years ago. The SVJ and the Ultimate, of course, are crazy, crazy cars, but that Rev Welto is going to be a next level Lamborghini sledgehammer. This is the iconic one. The Aventador, I personally think, now looks better than the Murciélago. It's quite an unpopular opinion, but maybe it's the spec. I do like orange, but I still love the Grigio Telesto. And now the sun's back out, I'm not going to be looking back at that car there. I have no idea what I've done with that wrap. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll leave the video there. Thank you very much for watching. Head into the link in the description to check these cars out, because that is a very special car, and one of, I think it's the only LP640 for sale at the moment, or at least the one that's the affordable one, because I think there was one that had done like 200 miles, almost delivery miles. Blows my mind. I'll see you soon, guys. Take care. Goodbye.